So the strength faith build I have for you guys today is going to emphasize the Death Knight's long-haft axe, and this weapon hits like an absolute truck. You're going to be doing lightning damage, a ton of physical damage, and it's a very fun build to play with a very unique and fun playstyle. The DLC has launched a ton of new Ashes of War, so Blink Bolt is no exception, and this is going to be a super great build. So let's go ahead and jump into the video. Just a disclaimer here, everything that you're seeing has been recorded on a first playthrough. I am level 150, but this is no new game plus build. We are going to be utilizing some buffs to boost our damage, as well as a really good lineup of talismans in order to make this build work. You are also going to see certain footage of armor sets that are not my final armor set that I decided to use for this build. It's just because I was trying to figure a few things out, but overall we're going to get into every single aspect of this build that you need. Starting out with the Death Knight's long-haft axe. This weapon is awesome. It's one of the better weapons in the DLC in my opinion, with Blink Bolt allowing you to cover a massive amount of distance very quickly, only to hoist your axe up and slam down on the ground, not only causing physical damage, but then being followed by a lightning strike. You're going to be one-shotting most small and medium-sized enemies, and the bigger enemies are going to take a lot of damage and sometimes stagger from this. It provides you with some great stance damage. You're going to get some great scaling with your weapon, especially since this is a strength faith build. We are going to be emphasizing the strength a little bit more than the faith, because the weapon does have very poor faith scaling. The last thing I'll say before we jump into the actual weapon stats and attributes is that great axes just got buffed in the second to most recent patch, allowing their swing speed to be a lot quicker, so it's a very fun moveset to use. Now with all that being said, let's go ahead and break down the Death Knight's long-haft axe attributes. So first and foremost, your physical damage is going to be pretty decent at 276 plus 266, and your lightning damage, which we are going to be buffing a decent amount, is going to be 178 plus 40. Your attribute scaling is Strength B, Dex E, and Faith D, and as far as your attributes required, you're going to need 23 Strength, 10 Dexterity, and 18 Faith. Now, as I said before, where this weapon shines is the Blink Bolt Ash of War. You're going to be able to blink towards your enemy, and if you hit them, you do a little bit of lightning damage and a little bit of a shove, and then you jump up into the air and slam your enemy with your physical damage of your axe, plus the lightning damage of another strike coming right behind it. This is a really awesome Ash of War, and definitely provides a ton of damage to most enemies and bosses within Elden Ring. I will say the only problem that I have encountered with Blink Bolt, especially with this particular version of it, is the fact that once you jump up into the air to slam your axe down on the ground, there is a possibility that your enemy can hit your feet and knock you right out of it. So you do have to be a little bit picky with the windows of opportunity that you use this Ash of War, but if you can master that, you will be just fine. As far as where you're going to find this weapon and also the armor set that we're going to be using overall is the Fog Rift Catacombs. The second you get into the DLC, you can access this. However, the boss of the Fog Rift Catacombs can be very, very unforgiving, especially if you don't have your Shadow Tree fragments. So after you kill that boss, you're going to attain this axe, and then in that dungeon as well, there's going to be the armor set that you can snag for yourself. Now, speaking of that armor set, we are going to be equipping the entire Death Knight armor set. The reason being is because it's going to give you a 2% increase in lightning skills and ancient dragon cult incantations by 2% for each piece. So you'll have a total of 8% total of extra damage, and it's just nice to have because it's at no cost to you. It just is what you're wearing. And the fact that the set looks really awesome also means you're going to perform better, because when you look better in a Souls game, you just are better. Moving on into the buffs of the build, we are going to be using the Howl of Shabriri as well as Golden Vow. Now, if you don't want to take extra damage, you can just replace this with Flame Grant Me Strength, although it's not going to be as good damage-wise, but Howl of Shabriri is going to give you plus 25% increased damage, and Golden Vow is going to give you plus 15% increased damage, with plus 10% damage negation. Those two combined very well and stacked together. However, Howl of Shabriri is going to make you take 30% more damage, so you have to be very, very careful when using this. I would suggest if you're going right into the DLC, maybe not using Howl of Shabriri off the bat until you have a few shadow fragments under your belt. Now, as far as where to get both of these buffs, Golden Vow is going to be located at the Corpse Stench Shack right here on the map in Mount Gelmir, and if you're looking for Howl of Shabriri, that's going to be found at the Frenzy Flaming Tower as you climb up the ladders. So let's go ahead and look at the talismans here, because that's really what matters and allows the build to synergize so well. So first and foremost, we are going to be using a damage negation talisman, which is the Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman. This is going to provide you an enormous amount of physical damage negation at 20%. This is more of an end game talisman, but you can get other versions, and if you want to know where those other versions are, just leave a comment down below and I'll list them for you. Next up, we have the two-handed sword talisman, a new addition to the talismans with Shadow of the Erdtree, and this is going to increase your damage dealt with two-handed weapons by 15%. This also is going to include charged R2s. It's anytime you're two-handing the weapon, you will get a 15% increase in your damage, which is fantastic. The Lightning Scorpion Charm is next up on the list, and of course we would have a lightning damage boosting talisman because we have a lot of lightning damage going on this build. You are going to take 10% increased damage, however, you are also going to deal 12% more lightning damage, and I feel like the trade-off is worth it. I will say, however, this is where things get a little bit dicey, especially if you're going to use Howl of Shabriri in the DLC, because that means you're going to take upwards of 40-some% increased damage, which is an awful lot more damage to take if you're going into the DLC. And lastly, we have the Shard of Alexander, which is going to give our Blink Bolt Ash of War 15% extra damage. This talisman is going to increase all skills by 15%, and it is a much needed talisman anytime you're using a weapon that has a really great skill. Now, one thing I will say, if you did want to replace the Lightning Scorpion Charm because you don't want to take any more damage, you can use the Axe talisman here for some heavy charged R2s because you are going to get a decent amount of stance damage from this weapon, and you can break stances pretty easily. Now, if you want to get any of these talismans, the Dragon Crest Great Shield talisman is going to be located just past the Drainage Channel Site of Grace. You just have to run across some of the logs, jump onto the roof of the church, and then jump down, and it's inside of a chest for you. The two-handed sword talisman is going to be found in the Temple Town ruins within the DLC right here on the map. You may have to dodge a horned warrior to get it, but it is in a chest in one of the towers. Now, as far as the Lightning Scorpion Charm is concerned, you are going to find it in the Wyndham Catacombs in Altus Plateau, located right here on the map. You will need a stone sword key or two in order to unlock the door it's hiding behind, but that is exactly where you're going to find it. And lastly, the Shard of Alexander is going to be a quest reward for completing Alexander the Warrior Jar's questline, and I will leave that entire video questline down in the description, so if you need to go get that, I can take you through step by step. And lastly, before we get into our stats, we're going to go over the Flask of Wondrous Physic real quick. You are going to be using the Lightning Shroud and Cracked tier and the Strength Knot Crystal tier. The Lightning Shroud and Cracked tier because we're going to get an extra 20% increased lightning damage to all of our lightning attacks, which is great. And then the Strength Knot Crystal tier because it's going to provide us with a quick plus 10 strength, allowing us to pour out more physical damage, which is always great for this build. Now, the Lightning Shroud and Cracked here is going to be found in Liurnia of the Lakes in the northeast section by the Minor Erdtree avatar who drops it, and the Strength Knot Crystal tier is going to be sitting on a small altar in Limgrave located right here on the map. And lastly, we have our stats for the build. We have 60 Vigor, 18 Mind, 25 Endurance, 55 Strength, 13 Dexterity, 7 Intelligence, 40 Faith, and 11 Arcane. If you wanted to do just Flame Grant Me Strength and Golden Vow, you can switch out some of these points in Faith to go back into Strength to get more physical damage, but overall, this is going to provide you with a great solid build. And guys, there you have it. That's going to be it for this Death Knight's Long-Haft Axe build. I absolutely love this build. It's a lot of fun to use, and it's pretty user-friendly and is not too intricate. So if you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe on your way out. I would appreciate it a ton. We're getting videos out as fast as humanly possible over here. Between YouTube Shorts and long-form content, we are busy. So thank you guys once again for watching until the end of the video. I appreciate it. And until next time, stay safe, enjoy the game, and I'll see you in the next one.